How's the squad looking ahead of this one?
Much the same again. We don't really have anybody coming back. Stephen O'Donnell's much closer. He's a wee bit of time on the pitch this week, but obviously he's been out for a few weeks, so just get a look at him again today, see where his fitness levels are at, see how he's feeling off the back of the muscle injury. But he's good at this stage, so that would be really the only one. Obviously we're kind of going through this process with Sam Nicholson and Callum Slattery just to try and get them more minutes on the pitch, but yeah, in general all the injuries are moving in the right direction, but it probably doesn't mean to say that anybody's ready to necessarily start or play 90 minutes in a game.
What was your reflections a bit further time now that you look back at the Dundee match? Any further reflections on it?
Yeah, just I don't really change from what I've seen. You know, I feel that as a staff we've got a lot of good experience, a lot of different opinion, a lot of different minds, and we were completely in the ascendancy at the point that we conceded the second goal. My eyes told me that at the time, but then when you start to look statistically, how much do you put into statistics? I'm a wee bit balanced on that. You know, there's certain ones that can be false statistics, there's certain ones that can really hit the mark, but if you look at your XG that a lot of people speak about now, you look at various graphs that we have access to, as well as watching the footage, and that 15 minutes of the second half, we were the team that were completely on the ascendancy. I felt we pretty much played that spell in Dundee's half. We carved out a couple of chances, and you felt comfortable, but I suppose there's always that aspect of feeling too comfortable in a game of football, but I don't think that that's what it was for a second that instigates the Dundee second goal, and from that point of view, when I look back on it, we carved out quite a lot of chances. I thought, again, you look at something that we were trying to press home the message of more crosses into the box, more efforts at goal. I think we were up somewhere in the region of 20 odd efforts at goal, to I think maybe Dundee's 9 in the game. I think they had 4 on target, we had considerably more. All of these things are just statistics. You know, we can be better, we can potentially hit the back of the net in moments, but everything leads you to the fact that we've actually performed pretty well in the game to that stage. And I said it before, we'll play better and lose games than some of the victories that we've had already this season. And I felt that was exactly the story from within a stretch of the game. Crazy 7-minute period within it, and I said after it, again, this is where I don't change my messaging, that we absolutely have to take accountability for goals 3 and 4. We do. I believe we can do so much better defensively as a team, decision making probably a bit within that, and that's a huge part of the game. But also what's a huge part of the game in Scotland, when you look at how tight this league is and how close things are between so many of the teams, momentum shifts are massive. You know, whether it's the first goal, I spoke about it after I'd sat at a managers meeting on the Tuesday night before the game on the Wednesday, and I was told categorically that we should have had a penalty against Ross County at 0-0. These make a difference in football, they absolutely do. I'm not sitting here feeling sorry for myself, but at some point, whether it's in a bad run or even when you're going to Ross County, you're trying to make it 3 wins in the bounce, you need some of these decisions to go in your favour, especially when we all sit there after the event and say categorically that should have been the outcome of a particular decision. And I feel that at this minute in time, especially that Ross County decision, and especially the second goal that Dundee score, I feel that they're big decisions that have went against us.
That second goal, the anger was clear to see from yourselves, from supporters and whatnot. Have you spoken to Willie about the process in which the referee followed, about the head knocking moving forward? Have you sought clarity on, I suppose, what the explanation was from their side of things? Yeah, again,
I'll speak freely in my take on it. The football club has spoken to Willie. Brian Caldwell, our chief executive, has been in dialogue with him from my side of it, and I can only tell you the truth. I can only tell you what occurs within that. The clarity is, in my opinion, that there's no clarity, and why I say that is because there's a mixed message on whether there was a head knock, or whether they seen a head knock, or whether the head knock was there but we didn't think it was too significant, or we just we completely didn't see the player lying in the ground. So I feel we've had a few different versions of that until we get to the end point, which is ultimately, if we'd seen it, we would have stopped the game. But then that's where I have to challenge the fact that from the officials, the team officials, what's the opposite side linesman's job is to follow the last defender? Well, he would see Kofi Balmer's laying the ground and he's not moved and he's holding his head. The fourth official has me directly in front of him before Dundee have crossed the halfway line. I have to stress that's before they've crossed the halfway line, screaming and pointing and looking in the direction and looking me straight in the eye as I'm giving him the information that our player's not moved. He's on the ground, is my exact words. He's holding his head and he's motionless was my words. I understand that the referee might be following the ball, I get that, but that's why it's a team of officials. So for anybody to tell me that we weren't aware that he was lying on the ground. I think there was also something that was mentioned that that him holding the head was an afterthought when almost you see that there's a counter attack. Well, that's factually incorrect. Again, you can watch any angle you want. He falls on the ground and he holds his head and he doesn't move again. So yeah, I go back to it, and I know a lot of people don't like this angle and the words that I'm about to use. As match officials, when you see someone lying on the ground, falling to the ground, holding their head, not moving, you do not get to decide how bad that is. You don't get to decide, and I use the phrase playing God because I believe in that. There's another significant head knock with Kemetio later on in the game stopped instantly. And whether you've seen that blow to the head directly or whatever, I've actually seen an angle of the referee. It looks like he's got an all bad view of what's going on in there. I know there's a cluster of bodies, but he's got an all bad view of that. I don't believe for a second that you get to decide how bad or how insignificant that head blow is. And I'd probably finish off by saying if it's one head knock, but the fact that it's actually two. If you watch the incident again, it's a knee and a stud, completely accidental, as I said after the game. But what's the outcome of it? If we'd seen it, we would have stopped the game. And I think universally, any of you guys that have seen it now, I think we all agree that the game needs to be stopped, and I think if we see a similar incident this weekend, the game will be stopped instantly, but that doesn't help us in this scenario.
How is the player?
He's fine in the sense that he's taken a stud across the top of the head, and quite clearly it was evident that he had blood coming out of his mouth, and the doctor and the physio were on immediately, or at the first opportunity I should say. But look, he's sustained an injury to the head, and I don't imagine any of us would enjoy a flush knee to the face, would we?
Did you get any clarity on the? Did VAR look at the penalty? What was decided about that?
I think the outcome and the take on it was that they feel that there wasn't enough of a grapple to that end. I think there was also a suggestion that they felt that the ball wasn't in play. But again, we've all got an opinion on this. I've looked at it several times. I do believe that the ball's been struck whilst there's still contact around Kofi Balmer's shoulder, over the top of his shoulder. And I think one of the things that came out of that meeting on Tuesday was, why are you doing that as a defender? The question mark was, if you're on the wrong side of the attacker, the person you're supposed to be marking, and your arm's over and across his shoulder, and at one point around his neck, well, why are you doing that? We would all say, defensively, you've got that completely wrong. You're completely wrong. And if a decision's given against you at that point, how can you argue? Whether it's a shirt pull, I think we spoke a lot about shirt pulls. There was a bit about grappling. I think there was a suggestion that we hadn't spoke specifically about an arm over your shoulder and around your neck, but how specific are we going to be about that? That to me is poor defending. That was something we spoke about, and there was also a suggestion, and there was something mentioned in the room, and I'll not specifically name names, but there was a suggestion about us as managers and coaching staff working with our players and passing on that message to coaching. We speak about coaching how you work defensively. We speak about coaching how you want to attack the opposition. There was a suggestion of come on, work with us. That's the information that has to come across to your players. I can categorically tell you that we do a set play meeting before the game as well as our open play stuff, and I stood for 5 minutes before we started that set play meeting and really going into firm detail with the players about not grappling, not pulling jersey, getting yourself on the correct side defensively, making sure that you've got an open body shape, making sure that it's almost that chest to shoulder so as you can protect your goal, and we almost spoke about players being fined if they start to pull jerseys and give away penalties inside the box, because it's our job as defenders to get yourself set. So I went into that detail. I took heed of what was said the night before, and then I see a situation where the same thing happens. You don't gain any benefit from it because your attacker's done the right thing, getting the wrong side of the defender. So what's the point? What's the point of me going through that full rigmarole with my players? I'd be as well just leaving it and saying carry on as you go.
Obviously, I think there was a bit bit of an angry reaction maybe from some fans after the game. Is that to get out of this wee spell that every team goes through? Do you just need everybody on side on Saturday, just behind you, and you know, getting everybody together again?
Yeah, again, blue sky thinking that everybody supports us through thick or thin, and you know, good results, bad results, and everybody's always happy. But we all know that that's not the reality of football. I'll always take accountability for the bad results. I'm sure you guys have sat in front of me enough that I don't sit here and pat myself in the back and celebrate victories and tell the players that they're wonderful and that they've conquered this game, because that's certainly not the case. But the way I look at it is, the more support and the more backing you get, the more confidence the players get, without question. Take me out the equation, take the staff out the equation, but the more confidence the players get. But looking at the bigger picture, I think if you look at it, we've lost the last 3 games, and I think that there's 8 teams that have been through similar runs in the division. We currently sit still within the top 6 of the division. We currently sit 4 points off 4th spot. Everything else that goes into the mix, I know I've mentioned about getting a semi-final and all the different things. We take responsibility, we take accountability, we understand that we can do better than what we've done in the last 3 games, no question about it. As much as I start to talk about incidents and things that can impact games, I genuinely believe that. I believe that without doubt. However, we take full responsibility for losing the last 3 games. Our job is to pick the players up. My job is to get the players going in the right direction and go and see if we can start winning games of football again. That's all made easier with support. But how do I sit here for a second and tell somebody how they should react when they've travelled up to Dundee and they've watched their team lose, or they've travelled to Dingwall? People are entitled to their opinions, and football supporters are always going to have their opinions. That seems incredibly strong just now. That starts to become a bit abusive, and it starts to become a bit personal in football in general. I think I seen it with Tottenham last night. I was watching the game last night. I think there was a bit with supporters. That's a part of the game. If you can't handle that, if you can't take it, I'll always say that I feel that you're in the wrong industry. But there's always an understanding that if there's a backing, if there's a real support, in particular the players, especially some of the young guys that we've got in the group and in the squad, then I always believe that you'll get more out of them. I believe that they will show a really good reaction. But listen, sometimes that's part of the learning curve, to walk off at dens and walk by unhappy supporters for young players, and they have to learn through that experience as well.
Well, it's been praised a lot for, just going back to what you were mentioning earlier about, you know, coming with a VAR show and a lot clearer and whatnot. Does the situation you explained earlier show that we've still got a long way to go, a lot of work to do to, you know, give that clarity to use? We sort of get it as the media because we get those VAR shows, but is there still work to be done in that regard?
Listen, again, I always take these things really serious. I've been quite open in how much I feel that I do believe Willie's made a change. I think he's made a change in communication. I spoke about 18 months ago or so, I remember specifically saying it, that we all have to get round a table, we all have to give opinion, but listen to opinion as well. It can't just be a one-way street. It can't just be a referee telling you this is it, and we're not going to take the football player or the football coach side of things. But equally for myself and for the players, we also need to listen to the official side of things. And I've been really vocal in that point, and I think that Willie's done that to this point. We'll need more time, and we'll need more opinion, we'll need more thought process. Of course, we need to evolve with what's happening in world football, with officiating games, etc. And they touched on that the other night. So I came away pretty positive after Tuesday. I came away positive again just because there's that ability to communicate. I'll always go in person. I know that can be difficult for some people logistically across the country with games to come on a Wednesday. Totally understand that. But I was talking about getting there, trying to see in the whites of people's eyes. So I've done all these things, and then you come to the Tuesday, and then you see a couple of things within really one instant that really start to up me. I suppose if I break it down, I've spoke a lot about what I feel's a real good claim for a penalty, but even if you want to shift that one aside, the issue that then starts to come about, that's not something we're sitting talking about on a Tuesday. I thought universally that was now a way of a linesman, 2 linesmen, a 4th official and a referee. I thought universally that was just something that stopped. And when I was doing a bit of punditry work, I was very, very vocal on it. I think I'd sat a couple of games where there's significant head blows and the referees waiting to see whether the team in possession score the goal. That's not how this works. I'm going to go back to my catchphrase again. What would you rather? Would you rather in this sounds pretty crude. Would you rather a brain injury, a head injury, or would you rather a really bad blow to the leg or the knee or the ankle or something like that? I know what I would say. I would take the one in the leg all the time. So are we actually going to take this serious, or are we just going to continue to talk about head knocks and trying to, I spoke about Paul McGinn last season. Paul McGinn fractured his cheek, completely accidental for the Kilmarnock player at the time. The Kilmarnock player doesn't touch the ball but headbutts Paul McGinn as Paul McGinn gets the first touch on the ball, and the referee waves play on. Paul's face is all caved in, subsequently needs surgery. Spoke about it after that. Is that worse than a late tackle? Is that worse than, for example, Liam Gordon's red card against Celtic? I know what I look upon as being much, much worse, but I feel that we're still centred around ground challenges and challenges round about the ankle and about the leg. And again, it's where I feel passionately about it. You asked me the question. I need to tell you that we're going to have to start taking these head injuries serious, because see if we don't, and this isn't to scare anybody, how bad does it need to get before somebody actually starts to take it really, really seriously and starts to implement real strategy to try and protect the player, get medical attention on the pitch as quick as you possibly can when there's a blow to the head or two blows to the head, and that is where I feel strongly about it. We concede a goal, but you know what, certainly protecting my players and looking at players across the country, I don't really want to see any of them. I know this is a contact sport and bad things can happen when two players are coming together, but let's get to that one first before we start talking about ground challenges, pulling in the box and everything else.
Just touching on your squad then, Stuart, you mentioned obviously having Sam Nicholson back. How far would you say he is at this moment in time to get a kind of level of sustained minutes under his belt?
He's still going to be at least a few weeks away from that. He's not had any pre-season. Sam, I think, pulled up in the second week of pre-season thereabouts. So he's not really played any minutes. I think he had sort of 45 minutes in pre-season, and he's not had any time in the pitch training. So you'll understand that we need to try and ward against him coming back out. So trying to build up his minutes in training, try to see if we can get him a couple of bounce game is going to be imperative to his recovery and ultimately hopefully his reintegration into the squad and the team.
How did Zach's surgery go yesterday, and have you been given kind of any initial timescale on beyond the end of the season? Yeah,
the club, fortunately for me, acted really quickly on that. Zach was seen on the day that it happened, real clarity on what the injury was. Obviously the rupture of the Achilles, the repair was done yesterday afternoon. Everything looks as if it's went well at this point, and then I think with that particular injury it's a case of how quickly you heal. So I think initially when I spoke to our physio, you could be looking somewhere between 6 and 9 months, and within that it just all depends how quickly it heals, and again we just wish him a speedy recovery within it.
Just on the back of that, is there an option to potentially recall Stuparevic, Ferry, or does that maybe alter your mindset slightly going into January window? Yeah,
we can recall players, yeah, absolutely. There's an option to do that. Obviously that now leaves us a striker short, and Zach, somebody that was very much in my thoughts for Wednesday as well, so I think that will probably indicate that he's been training well and he's been looking sharp run about the place, so really disappointed in general for him, but as I say, it leaves us one short in that actual kind of number 9 position, so we'll obviously assess that as time goes on and continue to speak to the club and Brian to see what can be done and what's the best solution to try and fill that void.